Okay, this is the big one. Immanuel Kant, the Kant. Now then, you should really, well, unless you already know a little bit, then maybe save this video until you've seen the John Locke video and also the rationalist dudes as well. In fact, it's best to watch these in sort of chronological order as historically, um, rather than sort of in and out. Unless, anyway, fucking hell. Right. Immanuel Kant, the Kant, was a 18th century German philosopher, and he was really important because he was in the Enlightenment, and he wrote an essay about what is enlightenment, and he won the prize, and he said it's all about fucking freedom to say and think whatever you want, but also that it's freedom to think and to for your mind to be fucking free from oppression and stupidity and ignorance and that kind of stuff. um, Now, Kant came along after these rationalists and empiricists had been around, and he is kind of like you could see him as sort of like an answer to, or sort of a mix of both of those put together, and then an answer to the problems that they both sort of said existed and the problems they had with one another. Um, Now, Kant wasn't the first person to say this, but this is one of the most sort of important things in philosophy to understand, and that's the two types of understanding, or two types of knowledge, or two types of truth. Um, Now, the first type of thing is truths of rationality, or truths of logic, um, and these are things like mathematical truths. So 1 + 1 = 2, or there's no such thing as a round triangle, or like a square has 4 sides. These kinds of things are true. They're truth by definition. They're true by definition. They're true all the time, and they can never be false. You can't say that a thing that exists doesn't exist. I mean, you can't say that my 2-year-old child is 3 years old, and you can't say my wife is my husband, because it doesn't make any fucking sense. Because it just, and it could never make any sense. Those things are just load bollocks, because they can't be true, and they could never be true. Whereas and it's like there was a blind man who could see perfectly well. I mean, that can't be fucking true. So things that are true by definition, or true just as a matter of logic, or a matter of just reason. Truths of reason, we could call them. Now, Immanuel Kant called them a priori true, which means sort of from the beginning, and they're true independently of any kind of experience from the world. Now, the empiricists, Locke and friends, had said that all knowledge comes from experience, but we know that some knowledge is kind of not that kind of knowledge. Some knowledge, like the stuff I just said about round squares and stuff. Now, a square is circular, or that shape. A square is not circular. A square is has 4 sides. That's by definition true. You're never going to say, oh, squares are 4 sides. Oh, well, I saw a 3-sided square yesterday. Oh, did you? That's not going to fucking happen, because it couldn't. There can never be a 3-sided square, because that would be a fucking triangle. So, or I saw a blind man. All blind men cannot see. You know, blind men cannot see. So if you say that a blind man is a man who cannot see, you can't then go around and say, "Oh, I saw a fucking blind man today, and he can see perfectly well." There's never gonna happen. It can't happen. You know, it's impossible for that to happen. So truths of reason, or a priori truths, as Kant called them, are things that are true and are always going to be fucking true, and you don't need to have any kind of new experience to come across and confirm that it's true, and you're not going to have any kind of experience that's going to come along and disconfirm the truth of it, or oh fucking hell, I thought all squares were four-sided until I saw that three-sided one today. Fucking hell, I was wrong about that. You know, it's not going to fucking happen. It can't happen. And you don't need fucking any extra experience to teach you that fucking circle is round, or that, you know, or, you know, do you know what I mean? Anyway, so these are a priori truths, and the kinds of truths that um, that John Locke was talking about, truths of experience, like John is drinking a cup of tea. Now you know that John's drinking a cup of tea because you see the Kant drinking the tea, and he could not be drinking a cup of tea. He could be having a wank, you know, or he could be, you know, taking a shit or something. And you find out the truth of that matter by seeing it or being told about it or something. And it could turn out that you think he's having a cup of tea, but then when you go and you see him, it turns out that he's drinking a cup of coffee, and you were wrong. But that can't happen when you're talking about 1 + 1 = 2, or circles being round, or squares having four sides. You know, you can't turn out to be mistaken by those things or find out that they're wrong. So there are these two types of knowledge, two types of truth, and Kant thought this was a bit of a fucking problem, because what he said was that all these things that are true by principle, these a priori things, you know, like circles and not being square, and blind people not being able to see, and 1 + 1 = 2, and all that stuff. He said, well, that's all, you know, stuff you can know, but it doesn't fucking mean anything. You're not saying anything about the world that's meaningful when you say that there are no round squares. You're just saying the same thing twice, really, in a different way. You're saying 1 + 1 = 2. You're just saying that 1 + 1 is 1 + 1, or 2 is 2. You're just saying the same thing twice. You're not actually saying anything that actually makes a fucking difference or is going to teach anybody anything when you state something that is a fact of reason, because it's just like, well, we fucking know. It's not interesting. We fucking know that squares aren't fucking round. I mean, and that you're not going to find a round square. What the fuck are you talking about? I haven't seen a round square. Of course you haven't seen a fucking round square. You can't see a round square, you stupid cunt. You know, so talking about things which are a priori true is fucking pointless, you know. And then on the other hand, David Hume had proven that all this experience, knowledge you have from experience, that's never 100% certain, because you can be bouncing the fucking ball and it be going down and coming up again, and you think that every time I bounce this ball it's going to come up. But the only reason why you think the ball is going to come up again is because you've never seen it not fucking come up, and it might just fuck off, or it might turn into a pigeon, or it might go through the fucking floor, or it might pull a gun out and shoot you in the balls. You never fucking know what. But so things having happened a certain way in the past is no guarantee, absolutely, that that's going to be the way in the future. And the human mind works in such a way as to expect things to be a certain way in the future because they have been that way in the past. And there's no real rational reason why that should be the case, but it's just part of our human nature, according to David Hume. So truths of experience, they're never 100% definite, you know. So, you know, I saw John having a cup of tea. He might have been having a cup of coffee, you know, or you know, I'm going to get up and go and have a wank tomorrow, but then my cot falls off tonight, and then I'm not going to do it, you know, or um, the postman comes round at 2 o'clock every day, you know, because he has every day so far, and he comes around at 3 tomorrow, you know, and you say, what the fuck you doing coming around at fucking 3? You normally come at 2, you can't. And he says, well, I've always come at 2 usually, but now I'm coming at 3, so fuck you. So you never really know anything definite from knowledge from experience, because all you know from experience is that you've experienced things before and that they've been experienced in this way. But that's nothing to say that they definitely will always be experienced in the future the same way. So knowledge that you have from experience is just an understanding that you've experienced things in the past a certain way, and it's no fucking guarantee that there's anything absolutely true or universally true about those things. So the conclusion from that Kant saw was that nobody really knows fuck all about anything that fucking matters. So nobody fucking knows anything that's really fucking worth knowing. The only things we know for fucking certain are things that are pointless and just a load of bollocks that don't fucking mean anything because you're just saying the same shit twice. Yeah, another problem that Kant had was he agreed with the idea of determinism that Spinoza had, that no Kant has really got any free will, and the only thing that you can fucking do is something that's already been determined by the way the universe works, and that science and all the stuff in physics that Newton proves that, you know, everything that you fucking do in life is already sort of determined by somebody else, and you think you're free and that you're doing it by your own volition, but actually your volition and things you want to do, everything is already predetermined. So where the fuck is your free will? And this was a problem for Kant because he wanted to believe in God, and he wanted to believe in right and wrong and in morality, and that, you know, you can be good or a bad person, and that you can punish people for being bad or reward them for being good, and all that means something, you know, all that shit. He wanted that, and he found that it was problematic now because if everything's already fucking decided and everyone's just like a pre-programmed machine, then it's not really fucking any good saying, well, you've been a cunt or you've been a good boy, because of course he was a cunt, of course he was a good boy. He was programmed and he had no fucking say and no choice and no hand in whether he was going to be a cunt or a good boy, because it was already you know, it's like falling out of a fucking plane. Of course you're going to go down to the ground, you know. So anyway, Kant was worried about that and thought that was a big problem. So Kant thought, well, shit, you don't know, nobody knows fuck all, and nobody has any fucking free will, so there's no fucking point in saying anything about anything because you don't fucking know anything, and there's no point sort of saying that this guy's a cunt or this guy deserves, you know, a medal, because the cunt was just programmed and didn't have anything to do with whether he was a cunt or not. So he doesn't deserve a medal, and he doesn't deserve to go to prison. He's just, you know, part of a machine. So what's the fucking point? You know, so he was a bit fed up. And he thought it was all a load of bollocks. He thought, well, I'm going to sit down and fucking think about it for a few hundred years. Well, he sat down and he didn't leave his fucking town. He stayed in the same town he was born in his entire life, which is Königsberg, which is now Kaliningrad, which is Russian. Anyway, Kant wanted to sort of try to solve some of these fucking problems that he saw in these philosophical in these fucking ideas that I've just mentioned. So Kant said, right, well, I don't fucking know anything about the fucking world apart from that, you know, circles are circular and that squares are square and that 1 and 1 equals 2. And if I think I know things about the world based on experience, then all I know is that I've had the experience. I don't know that the experience signifies that's sort of a greater fact or has any meaning that will not be disproven by other experiences in the future. You know, like the sun goes around the fucking, fucking Earth goes around the fucking sun, but how do we know that's true? We know it's true because we've seen it go around the fucking sun so many fucking times. But it might happen one day that it doesn't, or that the sun says, I'm going to go around the moon or something instead. But anyway, Kant fucking came up with the idea that there are two fucking worlds. There's the world of things in themselves as they exist, and then there's the world of experience as well, and that they're two kind of different things. Now, Kant was an idealist, and idealism in philosophy is completely different from idealism in everyday life. It doesn't mean the same thing at all. It has a completely different meaning. Now, idealism in normal life means that you kind of want life to meet your expectations of it. You want things to be good. You want people to be kind. You want the society to be just. And you might get disappointed when the world doesn't kind of meet the way that you want it to be. And you could say that people who are idealists are a bit naive, or that they expect the world to be different from the way it really is. Whereas in philosophy, idealism means that you don't believe in material objects. You don't believe that fucking tables. Any Kant talks about philosophy, starts talking about a fucking table, right? So I'm going to talk about a fucking chair instead, right? It's a fucking chair. Now, Kant said, well, you've got a fucking chair, and it doesn't exist as an object. It only exists as your experience. Idealism means that things don't exist outside of your experience of them. So if you imagine some cunt who's blind and can't hear, he's deaf and blind, and he can't, for some reason, can't touch anything, then you give him a fucking chair, he won't fucking know what it is. You know, the fucking chair won't exist to him. And if the chair doesn't exist to him, then in what sense can you say the fucking chair exists? Well, you could say it exists for me, because I can see the cunt. Or the chair exists for some other fucker because they can touch it, you know. But if the chair, if the way that the chair exists is different for every cunt that sees it, then what can we say about the chair? Really, I can say that it's a red chair, and some other cunt would say it's a spiky chair, you know, because he can only touch it, and some other cunt might say it's a loud chair. So we can't really talk about the chair apart from it being an object of our experience. If some cunt couldn't experience the chair at all, then the chair might as well not fucking exist. And Kant was saying that we are programmed to experience the fucking chair in a certain way, by sight, by recognition of shapes, by time and space. And time and space are really important, because he said everything that we experience in the world has to be experienced through time and space. is it necessary that things exist in the world in time and space, or is it something to do with us and the way that we perceive the world and the way that we experience the world? And he said it's the way we experience the world, and it doesn't have anything to do with the way the world actually fucking is. And he said the way the world actually fucking is, the sort of abstract existence of chairs and tables and big pair of tits or whatever, is is irrelevant, and that we have ways that we experience the world, and our experience of the fucking world is all we can talk about. But he didn't. He said it's not true that everybody experiences the world in different ways and all at different times. And he said there are some things in common that we all have in our experience of the world, and that our experience of the world um, must be must be this way in order for us to experience it. And the two big things were that it must be in time and it must be in space. There's no other way to conceive or to think of a thing existing not being in time or being in space. So he had other things as well about not about non-contradiction. A thing can't exist and not exist, and mathematics was an aspect of this as well, and all these truths of a priori truths, things that turned out to be tautologies. Tautology is when you're just saying something doesn't mean fuck all because you're just saying the same thing fucking twice. And what Kant wanted to say was that there could be things that you could fucking say that were definitely going to be fucking true, that were about the world of experience and about the world as it must be, but weren't just talking bollocks at saying the same thing twice. So he called these synthetic a priori. Synthetic, by synthetic he meant that they were from experience, or they were about experience, and a priori meant that you could know the fucking something about them before you even experienced them. So could you say anything about experience without experiencing the thing? Oh yeah, you could. You can say that everything that you're going to experience is going to be in time and in space. And he had some other things as well. He had like a big fucking list of things, like rules by the way that experience has to be. And he said it doesn't matter that you don't know fuck all about the actual world as it is, how it would exist outside of experience, because we know that all that matters is the world as we experience it, the world of experience, or as experience, and that this world of experience we fucking do know some shit about, and how it must be experienced, because we, as experiencers, are fucking pre-designed to experience the world in this way, and therefore we can't possibly consider that there could ever be anything that could happen that would go against these laws or against these rules, because it wouldn't make any fucking sense. So no Kant can experience the world in ways which contradict the rules of how experience works. So therefore you can have a system of the world that makes complete fucking perfect sense and is always going to be fucking true, and it is actually not just talking bollocks and saying the same thing twice, but is sort of something that you know about experience. So he said that, and he said the world as it is in itself, outside of experience and outside of any possible experience, no one knows fuck all about, and nobody can know fuck all about. There's no fucking point trying to think about it because it's a fucking waste of time. So we have to concentrate on fucking talking about the world of experience and necessary things about it. So this was his fucking philosophy. Now he also wrote about ethics, and he said that what's good and what's bad, what's right and what's wrong, and how the fuck should we behave, and what should we fucking do to not be a bunch of cunts and to be good people. And what he was he was a moral realist. Now, moral realism means that you believe that there are things that are right and wrong, and you think that morality and ethics is real, and that you can say that someone's being a cunt, and that doing that is wrong, and that this behaviour is not good and you shouldn't do it, and that that behaviour is wrong or that behaviour is good and that's what you should do, and that there is a way to say that it's just true that that's wrong and you shouldn't do it, and it is true that that's good and you should do that, and they are to be they are different from moral skeptics who say that no, there's no such thing as right or wrong, you know, and also relativists. Now, relativists say, well, there's no absolute right or absolute wrong about everything. It always depends on the situation, and usually it's you know what people say is wrong or what people say is right that makes something wrong or right, and there's no absolute truth of the matter, and no way that you can say that abstractly that someone who does that is a cunt and someone who does the other thing is a good person. Like if you lived in Nazi Germany and Nazis were saying, well, you know, you can kill Jews, and if they're children you can murder them, that's all right, then that would be all right, and you wouldn't be being a cunt because no one says you're a cunt. But the moral realist like Kant would say you're still a cunt even if everyone says you're not, because it's wrong to do that. It's wrong, and it doesn't matter what everyone says. The truth exists of right and wrong, and it doesn't have anything to do with what any cunt says. It's you know. So Kant was a moral realist, and he had a special argument for moral realism, and he called it the categorical imperative. Doesn't matter that he called it that, but that's what he called it. And what he said was, now, when you're going to do something, you're going to do some shit, have a think about it, and you know, you say, I'm gonna take some money out of my mother's purse. You know, I'm gonna take a £5 note out my mum's purse because I want to go to McDonald's. She won't fucking notice, you know. So you take the fucking thing and you say, well, I'm hungry, so I've got a reason why I want this, and it will make me happy to have a fucking McDonald's, you know. So you take the fucking money out the purse and you stick it in your pocket and you go out and you get yourself a Big Mac and whatever. And then you might feel bad about it and think, oh, that was a bit shit, or you might not give a shit and think, I don't give a fuck. Anyway, but you've done that. And now, why is that the bad thing to do? What makes you a cunt for stealing money from your mother? You know, why is that the bad thing? And you know, especially if she doesn't notice, so she's not going to get upset about it. But let's say it's a bad thing. Why is it the bad thing? You know, or let's say you don't like someone and you just go up and punch them in the face, you know, because they get on your tits. Now, what's right about that, or why does that make you a bad person, or why is that a bad thing to do? You know, well, what Kant said was you should think about these things that you're doing, and every time you fucking do something, you should think, what would it be like if everybody could just do this shit all the time, you know, and it was like a law that this was going to happen? not just for me, but for everyone. So would I want that? Would I be all right with that? So the stealing money thing. So you're stealing money out of your mum's purse. So then you've got to think, oh, how would I like it if every time some cunt wanted a McDonald's, they would go and steal money out of some cunt's purse? Then some cunt would be stealing from my purse and taking my £5 note, you know. Or what if every time some cunt found someone annoying, they went up and punched them in the face? Well, one day some cunt might find me annoying and want to punch me in the face, you know. So it's like you make a universal principle out of it by saying, would I be happy if everyone was doing this all the time to everybody, um, or would I end up on the receiving end? So if I'm all right, if I wouldn't want it to happen to me, it's a bit like the Jesus thing. Jesus says, "Do to others what you would like done to you." It's a bit like that, really. It's similar to that, but he sort of put it in a different way and said you've got to imagine it as a universal rule, um, and then see if you're still happy with it, and if you're not, then then it's wrong. So I mean, imagine if you go up to someone. Imagine if you see some old fucking person walking across the street, or crossing a road, and they drop all their fucking shopping all over the fucking road, and they're so old that they can't go and pick it up, and you go over and you pick up the shopping and you give it to the old person and you make sure that they've not lost anything, and you make sure they get across the street all right. Maybe you even make sure they get home all right. Now that's a good thing, isn't it? Well, that's a good thing, because when you think about it, you think, imagine if it was like the norm, and it was like every time some old can't drop their shopping, then someone would fucking help them. You know, wouldn't the world be a better place? And might it not be good for me when I get old and I drop all my fucking shopping and some kid comes over and helps me? That sounds good, doesn't it? I like that. So that means it's good. But let's imagine that, some old cunt drops his shopping and some kid comes over and fucking starts kicking the shopping all over the fucking place and, robs the old fucker's wallet, and then spits on him. Well, if everyone was fucking doing that every time some old cunt dropped his shopping, then then one day you might be an old cunt and drop your shopping, and that would happen to you. You see, so if you always think about these things in the sort of a universal way and abstract them to make some universal law out of them, and imagine what the world would be like and how it would affect you if that was the case, then and you think that's good, that would be good, then it's probably the right thing to do. But if it was like, no, it will be bad, then it's probably the wrong thing to do. So you've got this test, and the good thing about it is that you do get to sort of decide for yourself what's right and wrong, rather than having some cunt just tell you this is right and this is wrong. So you have ownership of your ethics. You have it's just what you think, but you use this method to see if it qualifies. So there are these universal laws of right and wrong, but it isn't because some cunt tells you that it's right or it's wrong. It's you figure out for yourself whether it's right or wrong by using this universal principle. So Kant is someone who's really big on the individual being able to master their intellect and to think about what it is to think, and what it is to be somebody with a mind, and to be able to use the mind and the intellect to make themselves a better person, and to understand the world better. Um, so yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter that the world can't be fucking known, really, because you can understand and know and say something about the way the world is for you as an experiencer of the world, and what you know is true and is universally true, because you figured out these rules of how it works. And it's to do with you, not to do with the abstract world, but it's to do with you. But it being to do with you is good enough because it represents the abstract world. Um, and in terms of right and wrong, you, you don't need some Kant telling you what's right and wrong. You can work it out for yourself, and it's still universally true because it counts for everybody else as well. Because no Kant is going to say that it's good kicking a fucking old man's shopping down the street, and everyone's going to say, of course, it's good if you help him cross the street, you know. And if you're living in Nazi Germany, where they shoot old men, you know, in the face, then that's always fucking wrong. Because even if you live in Nazi Germany and everyone's saying, "Oh yeah, we've got to shoot the old cunt in the face," then even a Nazi couldn't imagine that it would be all right if they could be shot in the face when they're old, you know, because they're thinking just about themselves and the situation they're in, and they're not thinking about things in an abstract or universal way. And if they did, they know it was fucking wrong to do that, you know. So there you go. And an interesting thing about this is you don't need religion for it either. You can be a good person and you can know the difference between right and wrong without some bishop or some mullah or some rabbi telling you what's right and wrong. And for people who don't believe in God, and they often get this argument put to them by religious people, how do you know what's right or wrong without God and religion? And Kant would say, well, I know because I use this system. So yeah, that's Kant really. Now Kant was very influential to Schopenhauer, who came later, who tried to who agreed with Kant that you can only really know about experience really, but you can say a lot about experience. But he didn't like the fact that Kant thought that you couldn't know shit all about the fucking real world that was underneath experience. He wanted to know about what the fuck was underneath it all. But we'll come to him in the Schopenhauer video. Yeah, and Kant was really one of the most intelligent thinkers. Trouble with him was he couldn't write for shit. His writing was all fucked up and terrible and difficult to understand, and it wasn't very much fun to read. But his ideas are super clever, and he was an absolute genius, really. So there he is, Kant, the Kant. I hope he's not too much of a cunt and that you think he's alright, because I think he's fucking brilliant. There you go.